for this. This is very nice. I love this. Oh, you are.
He's like Charlie. No.
Thank you. No, but it's been a good visit. It's been a short visit to Arizona, and we did a little bit of activity over at the Capitol, and I think we'll hear a little bit about that. So they're moving along. They were talking about an issue that I've talked about for 5, 10, 15, 30 years. But it's getting more attention than ever before, more than I ever believed it would get. And I was working Congress on the assumption that first time I ran was just to get a couple things off my chest. And when I told my wife I was running for Congress, this was in '73, because that was right shortly after Bretton Woods broke down. She said, well, what do you want to run for Congress for? And I said, well, I want to get a couple things off my chest. She says, yeah, but she says it's such a dangerous thing to do. I said, what do you mean dangerous? She said, you know you can get elected. So I guarantee you that wasn't the goal, that wasn't the purpose, it wouldn't happen because I wasn't going to play that game. So accidents happen. I ended up with a sentence. They sent me to Washington. And I figured, well, they probably didn't know what I was all about. This was an accident, that I'm up here. So I figured, well, I'll fool them. I'm going to vote exactly like I said I would, and exactly what I think the Constitution said. They'll never reelect me then. So I did that, and it didn't work. I kept getting reelected, and people wanted to hear a straight story. So, and then it was a lonely fight. There weren't too many, when I went there, nobody even heard the word libertarian, in the 70s. So it was lonely, even though my goal was to work cordially with anybody and everybody that would talk about ideas, thinking it was only an ideological battle going on. But as time went on, I kept thinking, well, what am I doing here? So I said, well, maybe if I do this and my district still will send me, I'll just set a record, in case somebody wants to look at it someday, and they'd come back and look at it. And I did that for 4 terms, and I thought, I still don't know why I'm here. I thought, I missed my practice. I went back to practice medicine in 1984, 85, and stayed out for 12 years. And I thought, well, in that 94, I thought maybe, which was a mistake, that the Republicans were going to wake up and become constitutionalists. It didn't seem to happen. But I went back anyway and did my best. And then I thought, well, then people started asking me about running for another office. Well, that doesn't sound like a too reasonable thing to do. But I decided then I would go and run for office, never with the thought that there would be anything more ever than a record being made in a congressional district that would put up with me and my independence and talking about the Constitution and the Federal Reserve and all those things that most people consider rather silly. So, but to my surprise, there were a lot of people like you out there that I had found, they found me or something, more than I ever dreamed of, and it was especially among young people, teenagers and college kids, and I really believe sincerely that they were interested in and fascinated with the message of liberty, and that it was related somewhat to what the founders wanted, and it's related to peace and prosperity, and that there was a lot of enthusiasm. So that reception there was very encouraging to me that, if somebody gives them this information, it can be helpful. And I'm more optimistic now than ever, not with Washington. I would never did go there thinking I would change Washington. And that's why when people ask me, how did you stand it? Weren't you awful frustrated? I said, never got frustrated with it. I just had real low expectations. I didn't think I was going to change the world a bit. Politically, it didn't happen. But I hope I contributed a little bit to get the enthusiasm built for what sound government is all about. And to me, it's not complicated. It's very simple. The founders had a pretty good idea of what it was, and that was ask the question, what should the role of government be? And the role of government is very precise. It should be to protect liberty. It's not to make you safe and secure and provide everything in the world for individuals. That's your responsibility, individual responsibility. And that to me is a question that never seems to get asked, because if you say, yes, the government should be very limited, that takes a lot of revamping in Washington. And there's the people there, our numbers may be growing, but the people in Washington just hunker down. The more threatened they get, the tighter they are about maintaining their power. And that's what they're doing, and that's what you should expect, because the system is very fragile and can get very violent. I think we're going to have economic problems, and I think the blowback from a foreign policy that makes no sense is going to continue to haunt us. But I think the precipitating event will probably be the panic, an economic panic, which will be greater than what happened in 2009. And then there will be a need for revamping. So that's why I do go out and still talk to a lot of campuses. I come to Arizona and say, please pay attention, please spread the message, because the more of you there are around to promote ideas, the better off it's going to be. Congress is always a reflection of ideas, and it isn't really partisan. There's no Republicans and Democrat differences. They're all endorsing the idea of interventionism in our life, interventionism in the economy, and interventions overseas. And they've all accepted the Keynesian model, but it's coming to an end. It's going to be chaotic, and our job as individuals, if we care, is to provide that answer. Leonard Read was a friend of mine who started the Fee Foundation, and he says, your first responsibility, was his instruction, was improve yourself. Study, understand, make yourself available, and something will come along where you can participate in spreading this message. And in my sort of modest fashion, that's what I've tried to do, and I encourage other people to do it. And I have been amazed when I go around the country, how many people started their own organizations. It's fantastic at what is happening. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. And I think it's going to be a big event. I talked at the rally today and described how liberty has created great wealth in this country from the time of our founding and the Industrial Revolution in 200-300 years. Most of the wealth of the world has been developed in that short period of time. We have learned very well how to use freedom to produce goods and services that make us live better. But we haven't done a very good job in demonstrating how you improve the relationship between people, to be more peaceful. And that's probably a bigger job. And that, to me, is not a complicated problem, because I think everybody can come together if they accept one law, and that is the law of non-aggression. Do not commit aggression against your fellow man. And governments be held to the same rules. The governments aren't allowed to do anything. I'm optimistic because I think in terms of long time, the Earth and the Moon and the stars is about 4.5 billion years old, and yet everything we see is a couple hundred years old. So why is it that the human race can't advance to another stage? Why did we have all that advancement in technology in terms of the nuclear weapons and kill 100 and 200 million people in the last century? Why can't we all of a sudden have this understanding which really invites people to come together? Well, you mean I'm free to do whatever I want? You mean the government's not going to tell me who I have to marry or not allowed to marry and what bathroom I have to go to? That kind of stuff. People get to decide this. People are free to do these things. And I think religiously speaking, intellectually, should bring all factions together. And this is why when you meet an honest progressive, it's really interesting. Dennis Kucinich was one of my best friends, and we disagreed on medical care. But we just sort of set it aside, and we talked about civil liberties and foreign policy, but we came together on that issue. There's no reason why on these things we can't work with people. So for that reason, I'm an optimist, and I always get encouragement when I come out and talk to a few true believers, and I thank you very much, and once again for the host and hostess, thank you very much for putting this.